Hello, everybody, and welcome along to today's webinar, all about report selections and custom report settings. My name's Calvin, and I will be your host and presenter for today's session. And I do have the wonderful Tina and Duncan in the background ready to answer any questions that you may have. So firstly, we're going to be taking a look at report selections. So what is a report selection, and how do you go about setting those up? Next, we'll be following into custom report settings. So what are these? What is a custom report setting, and how do you use those as well? So we'll be having a look at that as a demo. Then we do have a little bit of an interactive quiz at the end, which is totally optional, by the way. We'll be using the polling feature for that, and they are completely anonymous answers as well. So we do hope you get involved in that, a little bit of engagement at the end. Then we'll finish off with some further support and any remaining questions that you have. Now, the session is scheduled for about half an hour. However, we should only see about 20 minutes for the actual presentation, which gives us a little bit of time at the end for any questions that you might have. Okay, so let's get things started with report selections. So what is a report selection? So report selection allows you to run multiple reports as one. This is where you can then fully customize the selection itself as well. And alternatively, you can print or save the file as one or separate reports. So you can run the report selection at once, which brings up all of the reports that you've included. And then you can either print them all as one, save them all as one document, or separate documents if you need to as well. Now, how do you go about setting up a report selection? So you'll see here, we've got a couple of screenshots, and I am going to dive into the program shortly to go through a demonstration for you. But you'll see there we have a window of the reports library. So if we click on reports at the top, which is what we'll be doing, you'll get this window. So it might be familiar to some of you. And you'll see on the bottom on the left-hand side, you have an option for report selections. You can then click new, or of course edit an original one you have, and go ahead and select the reports you want included in that selection itself. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to bring up Sage 50 Payroll, and we're going to go ahead and run a report selection. So we're going to set one up and then show you how it's run. So here we are in our payroll program right now. So the first thing we need to do to set this up is click on our reports button. Now you can do this for pre-update reports as well. So it is available for both pre-update and post-update reports. We're going to focus on post-update, but the process is identical. So let's click on reports there. And there we have our reports window. So you see we've got a few favorited. And you'll see we've got report selections in the bottom left here. So if I click on report selections, we have a couple that we've already created. So a bit like Blue Peter, here's some I made earlier. So let's go ahead and create a new one anyway. And then we're going to give it a name. So I'm going to call it Processing General Reports. If I can spell general, apparently I can't. So let's get my typing all together. There we go. So Processing General Reports. And then on the left-hand side, so if I just click this plus for a minute there, because the best way to describe it is you'll see we've got all the categorizations here, which you may well be familiar with already. These on the left-hand side mirror those categorizations. So it's in essence a copy of this. So if you're not sure where to find those reports, it's the same way you would find them normally. So we're going to go with some of the more popular ones. So we're going to stick with employee. I'm going to scroll all the way down. They are in alphabetical order. Makes it a little easier to find. And we're going to use our payment summary histories. So we've got our part 1, which is by date. Click add. And then we have part 2 as well, by date. We're also going to go with pensions history. And then I'm going to go up one more. And we're going to have deduction type history as well, detailed. Now I'm going to add this one last because I want you to watch what happens on the right-hand side. There you go. It appears at the top. So in the report selections, you can't change the order, but you'll see that doesn't necessarily matter too much when we run this report. It's always in alphabetical order. Okay, so it's always going to be alphabetical when it comes to report selections in the order that they appear on the right. You can, of course, give your report selection a description if you wish to. We'll just leave that blank for the demo. hit save, and then we'll close that down. And there we have our new report selection that we've now created. So we've got some employees highlighted. So the next thing to do is go and run this report selection to show you what that looks like. So we're going to preview it, clicking on the little printer with the magnifying glass icon there, which you can find up here as well. Now it gives you the criteria values. Now these are the criteria values for all of those reports I've selected. For the demo purposes, I'm just going to simply click OK and keep these as the default. And if I expand that out, you'll see we have our deduction type history, which is one of the reports we've added. And across the top here, you'll see we have a few tabs. So we've got the 4 tabs there. And there are each of those reports we added into the selection. As you can see there, all we did was preview it once and all of the reports appeared for us. So if you run multiple reports after your payroll, this is a real time saver. Now, if I select print, you'll see here we've got a little drop down. So if I click on that little drop down, you'll see we've got a couple of options. We've got print the current report, which is the one we've got selected, deduction type history. We can print them all as a single job to our printer, or we can print them all as individual jobs. So if you have a paper jam, for example, you can just cancel one job rather than all of them at once. But that's to do with your printer settings, and you can also export the same way. So export the current report, i.e. just this one, or export them all as a single document. So there's the advantage of the report selections, and as you can see, it's extremely simple and quite easy to set up. And once you set them up once, that's it. You're good to go for the remainder of the time. You can, of course, if you need to add reports or remove them, you can edit these selections as well, simply by highlighting on the ones you want. And of course, it's up to you which reports you add. And remember, these are for both pre-update and post-update reports. So the process is identical to that. So that's report selections. So real time saver in Sage 50 Payroll, especially for those of you who have a lot of reports to run. That brings me nicely into the next section, which is custom report settings. So what is a custom report setting? So with this, you can use the custom report setting to choose the order in which the individual pay elements appear on some pre-update reports. So this is saving you the need to redesign any reports or get any designed yourself. This will allow you to change that order if you want to. So it's perfect to use if you have a lot of pay elements and departments. So you could set up a custom report setting for each individual department that may have their own pay elements. There is a maximum, however, because you can choose the order of up to 30 payments and deductions. So that's 30 payments, 30 deductions, 10 loans, and 13 different types of attachments. So there is a limit to how many you can set up, but we do tend to recommend not having too many pay elements if you can help it, as it helps just reduce the memory size of any backups and your actual data there. But yes, there is a limit, and it is 30. So it's still quite a large limit, and there is 30. So again, if you do have more than 30 pay elements and deductions, the custom report settings is another good way of splitting those out, so you can still report on them all if you need to. So how do you go about setting those up? So again, we've got a couple of screenshots of the report settings, and you can see there we have default, which obviously can't be changed. These are the default report settings, and we've got a couple we've added there in the screenshot for floor staff and back office, 2 departments that we have. And on the right-hand side is where you'll be selecting the payments in which order you want. So you've got the index there on the left-hand side, and then you'll be selecting in the blank line on the right a drop-down of which payments. And you can see across the top we have some tabs for deductions, loans, and attachments. So similar to report selections, we are going to dive in now to our program once more. We're going to go ahead and set up some custom report settings. Now, these are only used for specific reports. Now, there is a link on the handout, which gives you a little bit of a list as well of which reports these are used for. So if you're curious on that one, click on the link and have a look at the guide that we have. So to access the custom report settings, you can either go to company in the bottom left here and then select custom reports here, or if you prefer, you can go to tasks, then company, and then custom reports. So both will take you to the same place. It's just which way you prefer to do it. And there is the first screen that we show on our screenshot. As you can see, we've got a couple. So we've got one we've set up for Duncan. We've got one we've set up for a webinar demo, and we're going to set up a third one. So let's click New. Similar to the report selections, you can edit existing ones as well. So let's give it a description. Okay, so again, I will learn how to type general one day, don't you worry. And then again, click payments. So let's go ahead and add some payments. So here we have our pay elements, including the built-in ones, which is salary and cost of net payments. So we are going to include salary. We're going to have net bonus as well. And then I'm going to put them in a bit of a random order so you can see that you can choose the order of which these appear in. And we'll do over time. We'll leave those 4. Same with deductions. So we've only got a couple. So we'll just put holiday vouchers in this one. We don't have any loans. In fact, we do have a loan. We have a pay advance. Let's add that in. And attachments, as you know, are built-in elements if you need to add those. We'll leave those blank though. You do have a default button here, and you also have a clear button. Now, if you do need to delete one, highlight it, press F8 on your keyboard, click yes, and you'll see it deletes it from the line there. Pop that back in. Once you're done setting those up, click OK, and you'll see we have our new report selection in there. However, we're not currently using that report selection because you'll see in the drop down at the top, it's currently saying default. You'll also, hopefully, it is quite small, so I'm hoping you guys can see this, but next to the reference number, there's a little star just here. Hopefully my mouse isn't covering it too much and pointing it out for you. That's showing you which one's in use. So it's a quick way of looking at it. So if we click the drop down, let's select the one we've just set up. You'll see the star has moved down to 3. And click OK. We're now using that new custom report setting. So if I then go into Payroll, let's go into pre-update reports, analysis of payroll totals, let's preview that one. Expand the report out, and you'll see here under the payment breakdown, we have those 4 payments that we've added. There is a maximum to this particular report, so if you do go over to that, this is where you will potentially need to look at amending the report itself. And on the right hand side, we have our deductions there as well in this particular report. You'll notice there are a few lines that say unused. That's simply because in the report setting, there was blank lines. We didn't fill up all 30 of them, so we do have unused lines on here. So when you see that, don't worry, it's just simply because you don't either have that many pay elements or they're a blank line in your custom report settings. So let's close that. There's one more thing I want to show you. If you add a new pay element, so we'll just quickly go ahead and do that. So add a new pay element, call it webinar demo, click OK. Not worried too much about the settings in this particular session. Do check out our payments and deductions webinar for that one though. We now see we've got a new pay element called webinar demo. Let's click OK. Let's now go back to our custom reports. I'll use it from the task list this time. Now, if I edit the default, go to payments, scroll down, went too far. You'll see that webinar demo has appeared in the default one, so it automatically gets added to that default one. But if I were to edit the one that we've just created, you'll see it hasn't. So I would need to go in and add that to this report setting. So it gets added automatically to the default setting, but if you want to add any further payments that you may have created for any specific reason, you'll need to come back into this section and then add it into the line. So there you go. We've now added it. Go back to using default. There we go. And click OK. So that's your custom report settings, which gives you a lot more flexibility on what you see on some of those pre-update reports in terms of which payments you see as well. And as I mentioned, there are a couple of good use cases. For example, if you have more than 15 or 30 pay elements, or if there's a report that only has, like the pay analysis of payroll totals, a set number of pay elements that can appear, What you can do is you can create 2 custom report settings that split the payments into 2 groups of 15 and then run the report twice, and you've got 2 reports with all of the payments listed on there as well. Or of course, if you have multiple departments, you can create a custom report setting for each individual department, which may have their own associated pay elements, as I mentioned. So those are just a couple of use cases. But with this, ultimately, world's your oyster with it. It's however you wish to set it up for. So it's completely down to yourself, giving you a little bit more creative freedom and a little bit more flexibility with what you see on some of the reports. Okay, so let's bring back our presentation. That was custom report settings and also your report selection section. We're now moving on to the interactive quiz. Now with this, we're going to show you a question via a slide. You will also see a poll then after the slide appear on your screen. Simply select the answer you think it is and click submit. As I mentioned, we will be revealing results, but only as a percentage of who's answered what. There will be no names. It is completely anonymous in regards to who answers it. So it is there for a bit more engagement from you guys. So hopefully you enjoy it. And of course, it is voluntary, as much as I would like you all to get involved if you can. So question 1. The question is, can you change the order the reports run in the report selections? So let's bring up the first poll. It's a yes or no question. Can you change the order the reports run in the report selections? Yes or no. Now we'll leave each question on for about a minute so that we are not spending too much time. Whilst this is happening as well, it is worth saying you can continue to get your questions in to both Duncan and Tina, who, as I mentioned, are in the background ready. So please do keep asking those as you go, if you have any questions as well, of course. So we've got about 30 seconds left. We're halfway through this question, and then we'll move on to the next one. There is only 3 questions as well, so a little short quiz there. And of course, it does cover what we've just ran through as well. Okay, so the minute has come to a close, so let's close this one down. And the first thing we'll do, let's share the results. So we do have a big majority here with 72% going with no and 28% of you saying yes. So the answer, or the correct answer, is no, you can't. So as I mentioned with the demo, when it comes to the reports selections, you can't change the order. They are always alphabetical. But as you saw when we opened up the report, they appear across the top as different tabs. So although you can't change the order in which they run, they are just across the top. So it doesn't matter too much in this regards as well. So let's move on to question number 2. So what appears on the report if you have a blank line in your custom report settings? So let's bring up this one and we'll launch that once more. Remember, we have a minute. So what appears on the report if you have a blank line in your custom report settings? Do you get just a blank line on your report? Do you have unused? Or do you have N/A for not applicable? Those are the 3 options. One of them is correct, 2 of them are not. And again, like I mentioned, we're going to go leave this on for about a minute as well. Okay, so we have about 20 seconds left. So please make sure you get your answers in quick if you're wanting to be involved there. It's worth mentioning at this point, there are no prizes. As I mentioned, it's completely anonymous. However, if you are watching with a colleague at all, maybe you want to have a little competition between the 2 of you or whoever you're with. Okay, so that is the minute that has come to an end for this particular question. So let's close that one down. And once more, we'll share the results. So another majority this time, with 79% saying unused, 12% saying blank line, or 8% saying not applicable. And once more, the majority is correct. You're either really, really good listeners, or I need to make these questions a little bit harder potentially. Who knows? But well done. Yes, majority of you are correct. It does appear as unused on the report if you have a blank line in your custom report settings. So we did show you that in the demo. So if you ever see that on a report, it just means that your custom report settings has a blank line, which of course you can either fill with another pay element or just leave it as is. Okay, let's move on to our final question. Question number 3. How many pay elements can you add in a custom report setting? So let's launch this one. So how many pay elements can you add in a custom report setting? Is it 10, 20, or 30? Again, we'll leave this on for 1 more minute. Okay, so we have about 10 seconds left for this one. And the final question. Okay, so that is the minute come to a close. So let's close this one down and let's share the results. Another big majority this time, 93% going with 30, with 1% saying 20 and 6% saying 10. And once more, the majority is correct. It is 30. So remember, it's up to 30 payments. So pay elements, payments and deductions, 30 payments, 30 deductions. And of course, there is a limitation on the loans as well. But the correct answer in this one was 30. So that is the quiz. So hopefully you enjoyed that little bit of interactivity. That does bring us to the further support section, where I'll be running through all the options you have for any additional help. And of course, don't forget, you still can ask questions while we go through this bit. First thing to mention is our help center. So sage.co.uk/help. And here you can search our knowledge base. So if you do have a question and you think, should have asked that question in the webinar, it happens to me all of the time, then head on over to our help center, type that question in the search bar, and you can have a look through our knowledge base. You can access available support guides as well. As you can see there, we have a selection such as pensions, online services and processing, corrections, and payroll year end when it comes around is always there. We also have webinars that you can access through sage.co.uk/help. So we do run our webinars weekly. We'll have a couple more next week. So if you want to join us for those, then simply click on the webinars tab at the very top right of the help center. You can watch videos in here as well as get in touch. So if you do need to speak to someone desperately, you can find the get in touch options in our help center. Now, for a bonus little bit of advice or help on this one, if you're in your payroll program, and if you're in it right now, perhaps, press F1 on your keyboard and you'll find a version of the help center will appear directly in the program. And with this one, if you are in report selections, for example, or in an employee record, and you press F1 on your keyboard, then you'll get directed to all of the relevant guides that are based on that particular area of the program, making it easier than ever before to find any help guides that you need. So it recognizes where you are and brings up all of the relevant guides for that specific area. You can, of course, still search if you need to. But my recommendation is for that one, if you're in the program now, just press F1 on your keyboard and have a look at what happens. Okay. Lastly, but certainly not least, we have Sage University. So if you want to head on over to sageu.com, where you can register for free and access a library of e-learning, Sage product certifications, and bite-sized learning, which you can do all at your own time and in your own pace. Was it in your own time and at your own pace? Can never get those ones right, but you can access those for free, as I mentioned, and have a look at expanding your Sage Payroll learning. Or if some of you have Sage 50 accounts as well, you can also find courses on that in Sage U as well. So I do recommend, if you do get a spare moment, please do head on over to sageu.com. Okay, so that pretty much brings us to the end of the session. We do have a couple of minutes left over just to answer any remaining questions that you may have. So please do get those asked as we go. And of course, I will be back shortly to say our final goodbye. One thing I will say at this point is if you are leaving us at this moment, you will be directed to a short feedback survey, which you will also be directed to when the session comes to an end. I know I sound a bit like a broken record for this one specifically, but it does mean a lot to both myself and Duncan if you do spend a little bit of time to fill that in. We do try our best to try and make changes based on what you say. Sometimes not all of them are possible, so I apologize on that one, but we do read them religiously, and we also get a few ideas off the back of that feedback as well, the quiz being one of them, funny enough. So it does mean a lot to us, and it does get used. So thank you in advance for that, and again, apologies. I know you probably get heard and asked for surveys every time you speak to someone, so thank you again. I do appreciate that. So I'm going to jump on mute now, help the guys out with some questions, and I'll be back in a couple of minutes to say our final goodbyes. Thank you. Okay, so we have come to the end of the session. So we have stuck around a couple of minutes after that half an hour mark, because we did have a few questions there, but I can see now that they have now all been answered. The last one just going there. So thank you again to everyone who has attended right to the end, and of course attended any of our webinars previously. I hope you've all enjoyed it and learned a little bit from this particular session as well. That's all from me. The last thing for me to say is I hope you're all looking after yourselves there, and hopefully we will see you on some future webinars coming up in the near future there. And of course, we do run them weekly. So as always, look after yourselves, and we'll hope to see you in the new one.